Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real, straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rising Podcast for Women. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues, Dee Marcotte and Arlene Newman. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Always good to see you. And today what we're going to do, we have just been in an intense election season, right? And there have been a lot of town hall meetings and debates, vice presidential debates, presidential debates. And it has just brought up a lot of stuff that we see in our office all the time. And so what we thought about is let's do a kind of mini workshop on limit setting, because what do you do in so many of these debates? Like, you could see that the moderators were just struggling to set limits. They didn't know how to step in. They didn't know how to set limits. Some of the candidates didn't know how to do it either. And so we thought, let's really talk about limit setting. Dee, at the beginning, you were like, well, let's talk a little bit from the start about why the hell are limits important? So why don't you take that? Why don't you talk a little bit about why are limits important?
Sure. Yeah, it's, I think that there's certainly, and especially as women, we end up believing, oh, we can't hurt anybody's feelings. We can't be asking for our needs and wants. There's kind of like all these reasons we tell ourselves why we can't have a limit. But in that, then I think we end up having it show up sort of sideways, comes out sideways. So that comes
down. I always say women in watered down messaging is so hurtful. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also means that I water down this message, but over here, I do this other thing, or I try to manipulate, or I try to do whatever. And then we don't feel good about ourselves. Yeah. It's kind of like, and we don't ever get what we want.
Right.
So, I think that and the more we don't get what we want, the more we end up getting resentful. Mm-hmm. And the more we get resentful, that's going to come out in a whole bunch of ways. It's going to come out in maybe being snappy. It's going to come out with our kids. It's just going to come out in so many ways. And then there we are again going, beat myself up because look at how terrible I am. So it hits our self-esteem, it hits the resentment. Certainly the more resentment we have because I don't feel like you're paying attention to me or listening to me or doing even just a reasonable change in how you're interacting with me, why would I want to have sex with you? So I think I find a lot of women who are kind of like, well, I just don't feel like having sex. I don't care about sex anymore and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, when you're really that resentful with somebody, you would want to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's a domino effect. And so part of it is resentment. Part of it is, not liking how you're showing up. I also know that when you allow poor behavior to go on and on and on and on, it chips away at you. And so you have no self-esteem. You feel like you're not worthy to be treated well. Right. And the more you don't stand up for yourself, the more you teach other people that they don't have to either.
Right.
And the more you okay their behavior. So it just it really puts you into this spiral of hell, I would say, really. I mean, like,
right.
You feel like crap. The people around you start treating you worse and worse because you allow it. The more you allow it, the more they're going to do it. The more they get away with it, the worse they're going to treat you. And you then start passing that on to the next generation. You pass it on to your boys and you pass it on to your girls. And you pass it on to, any other gender,
right. Anywhere, in between.
Right, anywhere along that spectrum.
And my addition to that would be that you can't ever feel empowered when you don't know how to set a limit.
Mhm.
And what you're adding to is a feeling of helplessness and powerlessness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, and it also means that your yeses and your nos have no meaning anymore. Because if I don't set a limit, and I don't set a limit, and then all of a sudden I say no, people are like, well, that, you haven't set a limit. You're not going to do anything about that. And so they just continue to treat you that way. And then everything we talked about just continues that downward spiral.
Yeah. And for women, when women go inward, so women start, hating themselves, they start getting depressed, they start, right? Men tend to go outward, they'll get angry, women go inward.
Mhm.
So, okay, lots of reasons. It's so important to set limits. You cannot have a healthy relationship if you are not able to be healthy in it. If you are not able to set limits, if you don't have a voice, if you can't ask for your needs and wants, you can't have an intimate relationship, a healthy relationship, or a healthy friendship. It can't be one-sided. This is as true for men as it is for women, by the way.
Mhm.
Okay, so lots of reasons why. Let's talk a little bit about, sometimes women aren't sure, like, what do they have, what are their rights? So what are just basic rights that women have? And I just wrote like a quick list of 5, and I'm curious if what you guys would add or take away. So one is that you and every other human being has the right to say no without guilt. You have the right to say a guilt-free no. 2, you have the right to be respected always. 3, you have the right to physical and emotional safety. Emotional safety means you have the right for other people to not shame you, call you names, talk down to you, dismiss you, mock you, make fun of you. You have the right to physical and emotional safety. 4, you have the right to have your needs and wants be equal to the needs and wants of every other human being in your life and in the world. And last, you have the right to be treated equal.
Mhm.
So,
Great list.
yeah, so those are basic rights.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, your rights, every other human being has those same rights. So we're not saying you're like super special and you have to feel guilty that you have these many rights. You have these rights guilt-free. Now your job is to stand up and honor those rights
Mhm. Mhm.
and not question them.
Great. And I think I think those are great. And that one of the things I would also say is, you have the right to have the person on the other side be kind and considerate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the closer in they are, the kinder and more considerate they should be.
Right. Mhm.
We have this like crazy thing in our world where we're kinder to strangers often than we are to our loved ones.
Mhm.
We got to turn that around.
I cannot tell you the number of times I will have mostly men say, well, those things you just talked about, that we learned that in at work about how we're supposed to talk to people.
Yes.
Like, yeah, amazing. You're supposed to bring them home too.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so the other thing that I thought was important for them to know around setting limits, just kind of 4 basic tenets, I would say, is 1, people in general, and men especially, are attracted to and respect women who stand up for themselves. I can't tell you how many men I've had in my office say, once their wives started setting limits with them and wouldn't let them get away with everything, they're like, I'm so much more attracted to her, Lisa. And the
Yes.
wives are like, you're full of it. I'm like, I'm telling you. Have you experienced that, Arlene?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a turn on. It's very attractive when you see a woman who's very confident in her own skin and who's not going to allow people in her life to take advantage of them. It's attractive, and husbands love it, and spouses love it, partners love it. So
Children love it. Dogs love it. Everybody loves it.
Right. The people will lose respect towards you the more you allow them to walk all over you. You're not being kind. Number two, the more women stand up, what I have found is the more the people in their lives step up. So many women are so afraid, if I do this, I'm going to lose him, or, you know, my spouse she's going to walk away from me. In my experience, once you really hold the bar and you say, I'm not taking this anymore, and they know that you realize it, they often step up and start changing. That's not always the case, and we're going to talk about that. However, more often when women stand up, the other people step up. 3, all the excuses you are using right now to not stand up are nothing but excuses. You need to drop them. They are sabotaging you from getting in the way. And D, what are some of the
What you want, right? From getting what you want.
from getting
what
what
you
you want?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What are some of the excuses you hear from women all the time in your offices?
They're going to get mad.
They're gonna, that's probably one of the number ones. He's gonna
Biggest.
get so mad, she's gonna get mad. Yep.
Yeah,
So when they're gonna
definitely.
get angry,
Ultimately, they're going to leave.
they're gonna leave. That's a huge, we talk about this almost every time, that like gets on that you know, basic, you know, level of fear.
Primitive terror of being abandoned.
Yes. Yeah. So they're gonna leave. I'm gonna be mean. Right?
I get that one all the time, but that is
Yes,
so mean
yes.
to
Yeah.
set the limit.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bitch. I'm
Yeah,
going to be a
I'm gonna be a
bitch.
bitch.
I'm going to be seen as a bitch.
I'm going to be mean. I don't want to be selfish. That's too selfish.
All the people around me that are going to tell me how wrong I am.
Yes.
You know, so it's not only my partner, but sometimes the kids get involved, or they call your mother, and then
Their mother sometimes.
The mother calls and says, "What are you doing?" And I'm kind of like, really?
Oh, all these mothers in the world who are so not supporting their daughters. I just want to shake them, right? Oh, you should put up with him. You know how men are. You just take that. I just want to, like, oh my gosh, don't talk to your mom about this. Just don't.
Exactly. Don't talk to your mama. That's what I tell them. Do not talk to your mother about this.
Right.
She has her own issues. She's got her own stuff. This is like, she's not helping you in any way. She's responding to you out of fear. She's not responding to you out of a growth mindset. Don't do it. The other one I hear all the time, the excuse is, it's not going to change. He's not going to change anyway.
Right.
And then the last one is, I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy.
I'm too tired.
I'm too tired.
Too tired. Yes.
You know, one of the other ones I just thought of was you know, but my father told me to call my mother and apologize for whatever, you know. So it's kind of like this, somebody else intervenes and says, you have to go talk to that person. And it's kind of like,
yeah. So all of those excuses, women, we have heard every single one.
You probably have some, but we've heard them.
Like, really, like, throw them out. I will tell you one legitimate excuse. Here's the one legitimate excuse. And it is only if you are living in a home where there is physical violence. If there is domestic violence, you cannot do any of the things we're saying. With domestic violence, what you have to do is you need to call Women's Protective Services, and there's a whole plan you have to do. But if there is no physical abuse in your home, I don't want to hear, I'm worried about his anger, he's going to leave me, she's going to leave me, throw all those excuses out the window. If there's no, you know, physical violence. Go ahead.
And if you can't throw them out the window, get some help.
Yes.
Get help to be able to find out what's getting in the way.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And then the last one, this one is interesting. What women, you have to know is that the men and women in your life will listen if they're healthy, right? They will listen when they know you mean it. So you had damn well better mean it, right? And, you know, I often use a story about this just to bring home my point. How many women are constantly like, I want to lose weight. I have to lose weight. Oh my gosh. And COVID, we're all like, holy cow, I got to lose weight, right? So I was in my 20s and I was like, I got to lose weight. Oh my gosh, I have to lose weight. I know I have to lose weight. but I knew I wasn't going to lose weight. I knew I wasn't ready. I wanted to, but I knew I wasn't there. And then one day for whatever reason, that switch clicked for me. And when that switch clicked, I was like, I woke up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do it. To my core, I absolutely knew it. That day I had my last supper. It was delicious. I had a cheeseburger, with blue cheese dressing and melted cheddar cheese on top of the blue cheese dressing. I had cheese fries, and bacon, and sour cream, and then I had a strawberry cheesecake for dessert. That was like my last meal, right? But then the next morning, boom, I knew it. I knew to my core. And what women have to realize is when you know that something is absolutely not okay for you, and you know that you're not going to stand for it, everybody around you feels it, right? And I get men in my office all the time, and they know she's full of it, right? And I know she's full of it. And then when she switches, all of a sudden the men are like, oh shit, right? And then the men are like, okay, so you have to really ground yourself. If there's an issue going on in your life that you do not want to take, I want you to get to the point where you will not take it, right? Don't be like me. I wanted to lose weight, right? You want this behavior to change. You have to get to a place where, you know what? It will change one way or another, right? I'm not accepting it anymore. When you get to that point, you'll stop throwing out threats. You'll stop reacting and screaming and crying and begging. And instead, you're going to just land. And so what we're talking about today is, how do you land? You don't like something. How are you going to set those limits in everyday life in such a way that everybody around you, they know, okay? And they don't know it because they're afraid of you because you're screaming and yelling. They know it because to the core, your whole energy is, this isn't okay, and I'm not taking it. I love you. I want you in my life. But if this doesn't change, I will leave you. This will end,
So the shift, as I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking the shift is from thinking you want to change him to really changing yourself. So there's a real change in the energy and what you're focused on. And from there, you can do all the things that we're going to be talking about that you can do.
And we are going to be talking about the ramp up, but I do want women to understand that just because you change and in that moment, it doesn't mean that people around you are automatically going to do anything. Yes. Like you were just saying, Arlene, this is what I'm going to do for me, because I need to feel better about myself and stop resentment and all that sort of stuff. Right. But no, you're going to get pushback.
A lot.
So it's also sustaining this. The part of, I know I'm really going to do this, is sustaining that, not just, well, I tried it once and, it didn't work. Right. Like having it really grounded in you, like you were talking about, Lisa, to me means, and that's no matter how many times you do what you're doing on your side.
That's right.
Yeah. It's really, because great point, Dee. When you know that you mean it, everybody around you can feel it. And that doesn't mean they're all going to change. And when you stand up, many people do step up, and there are some who won't, right? And so, and there'll be some who are going to test you, just like kids. If anybody who's ever been a parent, you set a limit, they test and they test and they test. And if you're like, sometimes you follow that limit and sometimes you don't, that they push and push and push way more, that your life is hell if you're inconsistent with it. And so this is the same thing. It's really about, I don't know what you're going to do on your end. I don't know. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. And I'm telling you what I'm going to do if you don't do your side, because I can control over here. Right. And you may lose people. As a matter of fact, you probably will lose people. You may not lose the ones you think. You may not, who knows? We don't know. All we do know is that you are setting a precedence in your life of this is how people have to treat me. I will honor it in them and I'll treat them the same, and they need to treat me here. And anybody who isn't treating me these ways, they're not allowed in my inner circle anymore, right? And so, you know, be ready for pushback. And the pushback doesn't mean necessarily that they're not going to do it. It means that they're not buying in and they're testing you. And so you have to be consistent. You've got to be consistent with that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit around, we're going to talk about two different situations. One is, what do you do? How do you set limits with people who are fairly reasonable people? They're like, you know, they're pretty relational. They're pretty, you know, growth oriented, versus how do you do it with people who are not? How do you do it with the people who are, maybe they're entitled, maybe they're dismissive, maybe they're very on the narcissistic side, it's their way. Maybe they're super aggressive. How do you handle it with people who are not going to follow you? And how do you handle it with people who are pretty easy? And so let's talk about the easy ones first.
Because they're easy. So let's do it.
Because they're easy, right? So the easy ones, what I would say, what you want to pay attention to is if there's a behavior that's showing up that you don't like, first and foremost, you're going to address that behavior with no mixed messages. Don't smile when you're unhappy about something you like, right? So if somebody snaps at you, don't be like, oh my gosh, you just snapped at me. Don't do that. That's a mixed message. Don't kind of shrink or cower or try to nice them into it. So they just snapped at you and you're like, honey, are you okay? How'd your day go? What's the matter? Are you okay? Don't nice them into being nice, right? Any others off the top of your head that you guys can think of to not do when something happens in the moment?
Don't just give the silent treatment.
Yeah. Don't shut
And
up.
don't be reactive.
And don't be reactive. Yeah. So say a moment what reactive is, Arlene.
Acting very emotionally, like let's say your partner snapped at you and you go, I can't believe he did that to me.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're talking to me that way. What's wrong with you?
Yes. No reaction, no reactivity. You're going to get grounded. And so the first move you can do with any situation, we just said, you know, they're snapping at you, is you can hold up a mirror, right? And a mirror is just like, this is what you just did. And you give them a moment. For somebody who's really, you know, fairly relational, that'll work often, not all the time, but often. So if Dee snaps at me, I could say, wow, you just snapped at me. And if she's reasonable, she's gonna be like, oh, you're right, I'm sorry. Let me just fix that real quick. Right? You can do that with a child. You know, you're whining right now. Okay, mom, I'll stop whining. Thank you. Good job. Right? You know, so for the reasonable people in your life, sometimes you can just hold the mirror up to them and they'll catch themselves. Another way you can do that is, can you not snap at me? Right? I understand you're angry. Don't snap. You can just do a straightforward. And I'm not smiling. Don't snap at me. I'm not being reactive. It's just matter of fact, right? The other thing, those are probably the two biggest. You're either going to make a straight request or you can hold up the mirror. You can do either one of those, see if they change it. You guys have anything else or examples that you see in your office that we can put it to really quick? Or even in the world with friends, with neighbors? I was just thinking friends. One with a friend, like let's say your friend tells you that she doesn't want to go out, and then you later find out that she went out, right, with somebody else. So you can talk to her on the phone and you can say, I just want you to know that you told me that you didn't want to go out, and then I saw you on, you know, social media that you went out. You can name
I have a great one with a friend where I had said, I really, we're going to the baseball game. And so I really don't want to have deep conversations. I would like us to keep it light, just kind of what we're doing, this and that and the other thing. And there we are at the baseball game, and she's like in this. And so it's kind of like, oh, breathe. Okay, I got to breathe. Like, I think that's important in all of these. Breathe, get centered. And it was kind of the thing of, I don't know if you know, but that you're going into deep conversation. And I asked that we just keep things light. And if she had been a sane person, she would have said,
oh, you're right.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I won't do that. That isn't what happened, but.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing. So what a great example, Dee, because one, you don't want to feel guilty. This is where women go, oh, but she's got a heavy problem and I should help her and I don't want to be mean, right? You have the right, this is what I said earlier, to say no guilt-free, right? And they had an agreement, and then the woman broke that agreement. Now what's happening, Dee calls her out on the agreement, and she did it with a grounded, powerful strength. She just she just held up the mirror. Here's what's happening. And now that woman is in boundary failure, right? So she wasn't able to hear that, hold herself in warm regard, and then be like, you're right. Let's, maybe tomorrow if we can find time, that would be great. I could use an ear. I could use your ear, right? Instead, she starts coming at Dee. So Dee is absolutely clean on that. And the woman on the other side is off. Why is that so important? Because women, you're going to have to set a lot of limits in your life if you're going to be healthy. And you need to know that you are only responsible for your side of the equation, right? So Dee did her side. Her side was done. Her friend, her job was to hear it and respond with a grounded, powerful strength. Her friend didn't do her job, but Dee did hers. So if you're talking to your partner and you are trying to stand up for yourself and you did it clean, right? You spoke it clean, you had a clean energy, you were respectful, you weren't reactive, you came in with strength and a groundedness, and they're like freaking out or getting mad. The first thing you need to know is like, I did my side. Nothing I said or did made them do what they're doing. That's not my work. Now my work is, how do I want to handle what they're doing?
I didn't do very well in that part.
Right? But
we can discuss that later.
Right, we'll discuss. So, and sometimes, but that's the thing. So when they're spinning out, you have to think, okay, I got to still stay grounded on my side. And what do I need to do? Do I need to set a limit? Do I need to make a request? Do I need to hold up a mirror right now? What do I need to do? That is going to be me taking care of myself, and I'm not going to allow their kind of craziness to wipe me out. So this goes to every area in your life, whether you are at work, whether you're at home, whether you're talking to your parents, you're talking to your children, you're talking to your lover, you're talking to a friend, you're talking to a first date you just met, or you're talking to somebody at the bar. Doesn't matter, right? You have to think, what are my rules of engagement? How do people have to treat me? And when they're breaking that rule, my first line of defense can be holding up a mirror, right? Another way, I was telling Dee and Arlene this earlier, there's a woman, she's actually a former dominatrix. And so she does a lot of workshops on women in power. And her name is Kasia Urbaniak. And so, one of the things as a dominatrix that she learned, it's all about power, right? And it was very interesting listening to her talk about how what happens to women is we go so internal. We're always going internal in these moments. So Dee, says this to her friend, and her friend, then is like doing exactly what she agreed not to do.
She got very aggressive, actually.
Right.
And I went internal.
So her friend.
Sometimes it's even harder with friends.
Yeah, so her friend gets really aggressive and her friend's coming at her, that power is coming at her, and then Dee goes internal, which is what women do. we go internal. Men come at us and then we're like, oh my God, did I say something? Was something wrong? Maybe I shouldn't have said it. Oh, did I set him off? Oh, maybe he's right. Maybe I am being too sensitive. And so what she talks about is the importance of spinning that dynamic. And instead of going internal, you need to stay external. You need to go outward, not inward, right? So when somebody aggressive is coming at you, you're going to go out, right? And so, you know, with D, or with, if you know, your partner who is coming at you and they're snapping at you, and when you say to them, you know, well, actually, no, I don't want to go there yet. But when they're snapping at you, the last thing you want to do is go internal and be like, oh, I wonder why he's snapping at me. I wonder if I said anything, right? So you can be the mirror in that, or you can ask a question. What you can do is are you purposefully trying to intimidate me? It looks like you're snapping at me. Are you just snapping at me? Did you just come home and greet me by snapping at me? Is that what you just did? Right? And that's another way you can do it. You can ask questions and flip it so that they're the ones that are on the defensive, and they're the ones that are looking at, oh, did I do that? Right? It's another way you can do it. However, I would do that more with people who are tough than it is with people who are easy. The easy ones are they're gonna be respectful to you. They're gonna be like, oh, thanks for telling me that, or gosh, I had a crazy day, and you know, I'm really sorry about that. Okay. For women, if you do that first move and they hear you, move on. This is another place where women kind of mess up. Don't punish them. Don't go on and on. Well, you always snap. I'm tired of you snapping. Da, da, da. Listen, if they heard you and they're like, you know, they were accountable for it, you say thank you. Right? They caught it. It's not easy for us to, like, in the moment catch ourselves and then be like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right.
And I think the expectation that, like, oh, I said that once or 15 times or whatever, and so now you should just do that. I think it speaks to that idea of it would be good if other people listened to our boundaries and kept them, but they're not their boundaries. Our limits are our limits. And it's up to us to keep them, not up to other people to always be knowing what our limits are.
Right.
That's really our commitment to ourselves. And it's really our job to keep knowing what our limits are and put it out there, no matter what. Really, no matter what.
And that's where you hear women say, I'm tired, it's exhausted, it's this, it's that.
Doesn't work. Will never change.
Why can't they just do it?
Why can't they just do it? Right. And part of that, you know, Dee, when you were saying people have different limits, like different boundaries. They grew up in different families. Some people think that it's fine, you know, it's fine to just blow up and then come back and it's, you know, whatever, get over it. You know, some people are like, oh, snap, like I'm passionate. I'm not angry. I'm just passionate. Right. And so you have to hold your own. You've got to be clear. Okay, so that's like easy ones. You know, if it's very straightforward, you deal with it. If you're on a date and somebody keeps, you know, pressuring you, you want to say, you know, you keep pressuring past my no. Right? And if they do it again, now we go to, how do you work with people who are more difficult? How do you do that move? So differentiating difficult, one of the ways I think about it is if you find yourself fearful, and that, what I mean by fearful is fearful that they're going to, you know, fall apart, or fearful they're going to get angry, or fearful they're going to get defensive, or fearful they're going to dismiss you again, or if you have any of that, like fear about their response, chances are you are talking to somebody who's more difficult and is not going to be the easy person who, no matter how well you say it, they're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Right. So they might be entitled. They might, you know, have a hot temper. They might be selfish. They might really struggle with defensiveness. Those are the people that, okay, now we know that this is going to take more for me. It's going to take more for me to stand up. Would you guys agree with that? Like, you have thoughts on what would be a difficult person?
Yeah, I think definitely the snappy, the angry, the bully, where like I just keep, it doesn't matter what you say, I keep saying something. I am always telling you it's like the dismissive, it's your fault, it's your problem, kind of thing. Probably one of the biggest things is someone being defensive. That it's kind of like, well, you did that yesterday, or whatever, rather than taking it in, sort of thing. And then I think we talked about a little bit different is when you go into addictions or something like that, in terms of what that needs to look like. And so how you handle even those difficult situations, most of them fall under a template, and then there's a little bit difference for addictions.
Yeah, and so that was interesting. So there's difficult people and there's difficult issues.
Right.
Right? So difficult people, you're gonna feel some anxiety, some fear about, that's not just your own. Some people feel fear anyway because you're conflict avoidant and you don't like telling things. But if your fear is about their reaction, you're likely with a difficult person. Right? Okay, so here's our template for that. Let's say, I don't know, you want to attack, you want to start with aggression. Let's say you have somebody who has, you have somebody with your partner has a hard temper. So quickly they get reactive, they're snappy, they might bully you, they might intimidate, they might blow up. You find yourself walking on eggshells a lot around your home, right? So and let's say this issue has been going on for a while and you've tried everything. You've blown up, you've cried, you've, been silent and nothing works. You've told them you hate their anger, but nothing has worked. So what you want to do is, first off, you want to sit down with yourself and you want to have clarity. Is this okay? Is it not okay? What is the impact? What is happening? How is this impacting you? How's it impacting the relationship? Are you really willing to stand behind this? And to what degree is this not okay? Right? When I say like to what degree, it means like literally, is this something that's going to make or break your relationship at some point? Is this something that you really, really, can't stand? Like how significant is this? No threats here, right? So you're going to sit with that. And then what you're going to do, your first move with this, the very first move you're going to do is you're going to sit that person down, not when they're pissed off, not in the middle of a fight. You're going to, another time when no kids are around and you have the space, you're going to ask that person, hey, I want to talk to you about something. Can we find a time? And the reason why you want to find a time with them is because it's in your best interest for them to be in a good space to hear you, right? If they're super unreasonable and they won't even do that, like, first off, you want to look at that. Why are you living? If this is your partner, you want to be like, wow, okay, this right here is a red flag for me that I got to look at. But anyway, so you sit down with them and then the conversation is, this is the behavior, we've been married for 15 years now, and steadily over our marriage, your anger has been an issue, and I've talked to you, you blow up at the kids, you blow up at me often. I'm walking on eggshells, I'm watching the kids walk on eggshells, and I want you to know that this is a huge problem for me. And what's happening is I'm feeling myself get more and more distant from you. I'm feeling myself get more and more angry about your anger and about what it's causing our family. And I want you to know that this is a major issue. And I want you to do whatever you need to do to start working on this issue. Right? And so with anger, I would actually So you could leave it at just that conversation. We'll say, so there's the conversation. I want you to know that even if I'm acting fine on one day, I want you to know that if your anger hasn't stopped, that I am not fine. We are not fine. I want you to know that. Then you let that go for, you know, a week, 2 weeks, and you watch and you see, is he, you know, changing anything? Is the anger not happening? Are you catching him where he's, you know, slowing it down or not? Let's say it doesn't change, or it's changing so little. It's still not bearable. The next thing what you're going to do is you're going to have another conversation. You say, you know, I talked to you 2 weeks ago, and in these past 2 weeks, you have snapped at me. You keep snapping at the children. And I want you to know, here's what I'm going to do every single time from now on. Anytime you snap at me, anytime your anger is blowing up, I'm going to say it. I'm going to name it right then. I'm going to ask you to change it. And if you don't, whatever conversation we're in, I'm ending it. And I'm going to leave the room, and I'm going to walk away because I'm not going to be in that space anymore. If it's showing up with the kids, I'm going to ask the kids to come with me, and they're going to leave the room as well. If you follow me, when you and I are arguing, if you follow me, I'm going to get in the car and I will literally leave the house if you don't let me go. Right? And you only have to say that if that has been a pattern. If you know they don't let you go, that's what you're going to do, right? So then what you do with that, and this is the tricky part, women, every single time that he is snapping at you, or she is snapping at you, or really, you know, coming in with that intense anger, you're going to say, you're snapping at me. Lower your tone. And then you're going to see if they fix it. If they don't fix it, then the next thing you're going to do is you'll be like, that's it. This conversation's over. I'm going in the other room. And then you're going to go. And if they start chasing you, you're going to turn and you're going to say, if you continue to follow me, I will get in the car and I will leave. And if they continue to follow you, you're going to go get in the car and you leave. Now, if it escalates, you have to, I don't want to go there. We've talked about, we're talking about.
This isn't for physical abuse.
Somebody who there's no physical abuse. So I don't want to go there. So you go and you get in the car and you go, right? And I would take an hour. I would do whatever you need to do. If you're afraid for the kids, although again, this isn't a physically abusive situation, but if, you know, you can get the kids and take them for an ice cream or something. If you're like, dad's like really, you know, in a pissy mood, whatever. So then you're going to, every time you're going to say, lower your tone. You're snapping at me. You're intense right now. Every single time. And I want you to know that's going to be very, very hard, because you need to do that when you're tired. You need to do that when you're, you know, cranky. You need to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. At first, it's probably going to annoy them, and it's probably going to escalate with them. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be prepared for that. You can't shrink and back down. Right? Right. If that doesn't work, you're going to give that, like, I'd say 2 weeks, where you're going to do it every time, steadily. And remember, you're coming in with a grounded, powerful strength, right? Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, you're not coming in like, you're snapping at me. I don't want to hear that. Your back is straight. You're looking them right in the eye. You're snapping at me. Lower your tone, right? You're going to do that every time.
And you're not going to be reactive either.
No.
I can't believe it. You always do this. I told you not to. That's not what we're talking about either.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah, that weakens it. We want you a grounded, powerful strength. Grounded, powerful strength is power from within, right? You don't need to go crazy. You just need to stand behind yourself. That's what you're going to do. The next, so then you see if that works. That doesn't work. Now what you have to do is you have to start steadily ramping up your limits, and you're going to ramp them and ramp them and ramp them. Here's the template that we have come up with. This is one template. You can come up with your own. This is just an easy template. Here's the ramping. So you try this for 2 weeks, he's still doing it. Then the next ramp is going to be, so the next ramp could be, I am no longer going to be entertaining with you. I don't want to go out to parties with friends. I don't want to be going out to dinner with you. I don't feel safe in your presence. and I don't like the way you treat me, and the emotion, your temper is not something that I want to be around. So until I see a shift in that, I'm not going out with you. But I will go to friends' parties by myself. I just won't go with you. I want you to know that. Then you see what happens. The next one could be you go on strike. You know, I do a lot of things for you in this house. You know, I do a lot of things for you in this relationship. And I'm not doing that anymore. So I am still walking on eggshells. I'm still nervous about your anger. I'm watching the kids do that. Nothing I've done has worked. And so now you're not listening to me and you're not respecting my needs. So I'm going to go on strike. And so what does that mean? That means whatever you're doing, you're going to stop. Are you doing laundry? Don't do laundry. Are you, what are you doing? You're going to have to stop doing those things, right? Not punishingly. It's just out of self-care. I'm not going to care more for you than you care for me. I won't do it. I just won't do it.
Well, and I think one of the things we're talking about is like you have given them these privileges. And because of how they're treating you, you don't keep giving privileges to somebody who is treating you poorly.
Yeah, right. Those privileges are based on a mutual agreement to be respectful and loving and cherishing and caring and kind. And if those are broken, you're not participating in that anymore. You're not going to do your part if you're being trampled on. That is just not acceptable.
Right. Because that's basically you trampling on you and them trampling on you.
That's right.
And, before we were talking about the excuses, but this is one of the places that I hear usually women in particular saying, well, so you're saying that I'm going to make dinner for me and the kids and not them? I'm like, yes. That's what I mean. And they're like, well, that seems ridiculous. Why?
Right.
So I think that idea where you were talking about like you've really got to get this at your core. This is not acceptable, and I'm going to do whatever is needed.
Right.
To take care of myself.
Prepared. You have to really, if you're going to actually take this seriously, you have to really be prepared, and you're going to be on the job 24/7. That you can't really let your guard down. You're going to have to be very awake and ready to deal with whatever is in front of you and address it.
You are determined. That you are just absolutely determined. It's an internal, people in my life will not treat me like this.
That's right.
End of story. I won't treat them like that, and they will not treat me like this. And it can be done lovingly and compassionately and with strength. I love you. I want you in my life. And if you can't change this, this will not work. I'm hoping you're going to join me. That's your decision. My decision is I won't accept it. So go on strike. And then the next one, although you could move this one up if you wanted to, depends on where you're at. The next one is we need to get into therapy. I've tried everything. I'm at my wit's end. We need to get into therapy. If your partner says no, then what you do is you go to individual therapy and you do it yourself. And I love what Dee had said. Dee, you want to say what you tell them?
Sure. I say, you can say to them, okay, you if you choose not to come, that's fine. But if I go to therapy alone, then I'm going to be changing even more, and we're more likely to separate.
And I would even push that up another notch. I'm going to go to therapy alone. And I want you to know that one of the things that I will be looking at is whether or not I need to separate.
Yeah, great.
I want to be very clear with you around that.
Right.
Right? Again, when you know that you mean it, they'll feel it. If you're saying that as a scare tactic, it's not going to work. So no scare tactics here. You only say what you're going to do. I hear too many women throwing out threats, hoping to scare the men and women in their lives into action. Don't do that. That just teaches them to not listen to you. All right, so then it's therapy. If they don't join, and like if this is couples, you make sure you get yourself a damn good therapist, right? You got to get yourself somebody who works with couples, hard couples, right? There's a lot of coaches out there, therapists out there who work with couples. If you're an easy couple, great. It's not as important. If you have an anger issue, you had better work with somebody who can actually take your partner on and who can handle that, is not going to be intimidated by their anger. That is absolutely vital. Okay, then the next one is sex is off the table. I am not being sexual with you. This is not about manipulation. I am not going to be sexual with somebody who doesn't respect me, who I have to be afraid of. That's not happening. Then separation. It can be an in-house separation. You can move out of the bedroom if you have that space, or a bigger separation. And then the last one is divorce. And that all depends on how far you're willing to go, right? If you're not willing to separate, first off, before you go to separation, sex should always be off the table. I'm always like, anybody who's like, we're going to divorce, but they had sex last week and they're steadily having sex, makes no sense to me. That should just not be happening. And then what was I going to say about the separation before that? If you're not ready for separation, you're not prepared for separation, you're not going to state that. You're not going to state that. Maybe what you're going to do is you're going to start creating a life more with friends, and you're going to like do different things where you're taking care of yourself to build yourself up. In which case you're going to say, and I know that I'm not ready for divorce because of the children, but I want you to know that is in name only. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're going to live very separate lives as long as this keeps happening, right? So there's lots of different things. You have to figure out how far you're willing to go, but that's the template from A to Z, and you can put any issue in there. We were talking earlier, there were 3 issues that we came up with that we see ad nauseum in our practices: dismissiveness, aggression, and defensiveness. We just chose aggression for right now, but Arlene, you want to talk about dismissiveness? What you see in your office?
I see it in so many ways that it's, when we were preparing to do this, I started to pay attention, and it was very, it was a little shocking to hear how much of the kind of dysfunctional interactions between husbands and wives or partners, where the woman would try to bring something up, whether it was, something even not about the partner, but about herself, but the partner was just not really emotionally available to discuss it. You're so sensitive. Everything always bothers you. Like things like that. It was really painful to hear, and how women would just retreat. They would in some way agree, because they've been told it so many times themselves, and they would retreat and give up and get depressed. They would get depressed.
So play that out for a moment. So I'll play him, you play her. So I'm saying, oh, you're so sensitive. You're just so sensitive. I don't know why these little things bother you. Oh, yeah.
Oh, honey, I had such a hard day today. I was talking to our daughter, and she's so upset, and it got me so depressed. I feel so hopeless about where her life is.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why you let these little things bother you. You're so sensitive.
Okay, now you're being very dismissive right now. What you just said to me, how you responded to me, was exactly what I was talking to you about. It's very dismissive, and it's hurtful.
See, look, I made one statement. I'm right. Why are you letting this thing bug you so much?
This is another example. You're doing it again. You're being dismissive and defensive. And you know what? I don't want to engage with you right now.
Are you going to do that every time I speak to you?
Yes, I am. If you speak to me in this way, I will absolutely do that every time, no matter where, no matter what.
There you go. Nice.
Mhm.
As him, I'm a little shaken. I'm a little like jarred. The first time I'm like, I can brush through that. The second time she said it again, I was, and then I was about to dismiss her again. And she's like, then she's going to end the conversation. And I'm trying to save face, like, oh, you're going to do that every time. And then when she came in, like when you just came in like that, I was like, oh, damn. Because now I'm thinking, oh shit, she means this. I'm starting to be like, huh, right? If she did this to me every time, it's going to be a game changer. So how did that feel for you, Arlene?
Good. Good. I felt very in myself when I spoke. I wanted to not just name his behavior, but I wanted to say the impact that it had on me, that it was hurtful.
Yeah.
And in naming it, I felt that I was taking care of myself.
That's it. Now, that's a grounded, powerful strength. She did it very cleanly. She wasn't reactive. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't like, oh my gosh, she wasn't shrinking. What's super important is she's got to stay very grounded in the fact that this is not okay. This is not okay. Right? And she's ramping it up. She's ramping it up. She met him when he's like, oh, you're going to do this every time? She's like, absolutely, I am. Right? So women.
And she said it with a straight face. I mean,
Yes.
I want to point that out.
There's no wiggle room
she was
here.
like, yes, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
she
it's
was
not
like,
punitive, because that would have been reactive, right?
Right.
It would have been
I did not feel reactive. I felt
Right.
like, okay.
And it's also that mixed message.
Right.
Yes.
So should I believe your smile or should I believe what
Yes.
you're saying?
Right.
It was just, matter of fact, and you looked matter of fact.
Yeah. And it's funny. So say a little bit more about you didn't feel reactive. What did you feel?
I felt I don't like to be spoken to this way.
Yeah. Matter of fact.
I don't want to be engaged in a conversation when somebody speaks to me in that tone of voice and that dismissive way. It's just, I don't want to be part of this. No
Right.
way, no how.
But what's so great
It's
is
all about me.
Yeah. There's no disgust. There's no contempt.
No, this is just where I am. This is my reaction to what's happening, and this is the action I'm going to take because this is how I'm feeling. So I'm really paying attention to myself and how I feel, and I'm making a decision how I'm going to tackle that.
Now, let's talk about energy here, because we hear from women all the time, that's exhausting, I don't have the energy. Let me tell you what's going to be energy zapping in this. Arlene could have done the exact same thing. What's going to zap her energy is if she's hoping it's going to work with him. What's going to give her energy is her not caring, is her being like, I know my side, I'm not taking this. But if she's like, oh, it does, I hope some miracle is going to happen right now, and he doesn't change, and she has that hope out there, then that's going to zap her energy. You are focused on you. You're focused on this moment at this time. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to string together 1,000 of these moments, and I'm going to ramp it up. And if I need to go on strike, I'm going to go on strike with the clean energy, like I know this, like I am on the bridge over here of absolutely hating these conversations how he talks to me all the time. And I'm going to get myself to the bridge across the way, which is either our marriage is in a better place, or I'm in a stronger place to walk away if I need to, or I'm in a stronger place to be able to hold my own. Right. And so it's all about you, all about you. If you're so worried about him, it's going to be energy zapping.
or if you're trying to prove your point, you get into an argument, any of those are all traps.
Right. So if after she said, when I said, oh, you're going to do this every conversation, and she's like, yes, I am. If she stayed in that with me, then if I were like, oh, really? Oh, this is just you. What is this new? Have you read a new book? Are you on a new self-help journal? Is this what your therapist said? Right? Like I'm dismissive.
All of that,
right? I could do all of that, you know, oh, is this what your therapist just said to you? Her next move is to not say a word, get up, walk away. Because she's already told him what she's going to do.
Twice. I already said it twice. I don't need to repeat it again. Now I have to take a different kind of action.
Right.
That's the exclamation point.
Yeah.
Not a run-on sentence, right? You're done.
You're
finished.
Done. End of story.
Yeah, I think part of what you're talking about is there's, in a way, I have no agenda and no judgment. What I have is what I'm going to do. So you change, I'd like you to change, but you know, it's not like, oh, I'm going to get you to.
Right, no control there.
I don't have the agenda, and I don't have a judgment. It's kind of like, oh, you're doing that? Well, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
You know, like, because that just kind of talking about that, when you have those other two things, that's part of the energy draining piece.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, women, it's going to take a while to do this, right? You're going to do it at first. You're going to have a smile on your face. You're going to be a little wishy-washy. Your heart's going to be going 1,000 miles a minute. And then each time you do it, it'll get easier and easier and easier. And you'll start paying attention. You know, we want you to pay attention to your face, pay attention to, you know, are you coming in with a clean energy? No contempt, no disgust, just matter of fact. This is all about you. You're getting grounded in your body, grounded in your power. No smiles, no any of that, right? And then as you do that more and more and more and more, we promise you, you are going to feel so much better, regardless of what happens to the person on the other side of you. And you're going to have to work that. You got to keep working it and working it and working it. I don't want to hear, none of us want to hear any of those excuses that keep you out of stepping into your power and changing your life. You have to stop playing by old rules, right?
And part of what you're talking about is part of a neuroscience thing, that here's the skill. Now you have to practice for it actually to become something that feels more right, more familiar than this old pattern.
That's right. So in the beginning, you might have a lot of anxiety. Like when Lisa said, your heart is going to be pounding. It's going to feel very scary, very unfamiliar, and you have to be brave. You do. You have to be brave. You have to be willing to go through that scary feeling in your body and know that this is the right thing to do for everybody, for you, for your kids, for your marriage.
Absolutely. We are blazing new trails. This is true at work, in the work environment. This is true in the home environment. This is true with a stranger on the street. This is true with neighbors. Doesn't matter, right? With the most difficult ones, those who are closer in your inner circle, those are the ones you're going to ramp up, right? Strangers, you're just going to deal with it in the moment. You know, you're going to take your stand and set a limit if you need to in the moment. And this is how we're blazing new trails. It takes courage to do that. It's not going to come easy. The reward is going to be tremendous on the other side. And this is what you have to do. For those women who are in dating relationships, you need to have your no be a no, and it cannot be, I'm sending out cues. I don't want to hear about cues. I want a specific, no, you're not listening to my no. Are you purposefully ignoring my no? This date is done. Right? You get up, you go. So everywhere, practice it. You can always start these skills that we teach with the lowest risk people on the lowest risk issues. So you build your strength a little bit, and then start practicing it everywhere. And notice when you do it, how does it feel on your end? Not how did they respond? How did it feel for you to actually step in and, you know, hold your ground and to walk in and step in with a ground and powerful strength?
Mhm.
All it focuses on you, 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 you. Nobody makes you do anything.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Want to tackle challenges?
Okay, so the challenge for women, what we'd like you to do is choose one issue where you tend to excuse or do something else, and we want you to put mirroring to it. And we want you to choose something a little bit low key. So, Arlene, I think you had a good idea for that.
Yeah, I was thinking of your kids, because I think you're pretty safe with them. They're not going to be threatening you.
Mhm.
So the easiest one would be something like, honey, are you aware that you left your dishes in the sink again? You did not put them in the dishwasher. Going up a little bit would be, I'm talking to you and you're rolling your eyes. I find it very contemptuous and disrespectful and not okay. Yeah, just another one would be a tone, right? You're speaking to me in a very disrespectful tone. I'm not okay with that.
Love it. So you're just naming it. You're literally naming exactly what they're doing. Love that. And you practice that on the safest people, lowest issues, until you feel like you can do this on the more serious issue in your life.
And I want to say one more thing to that is that you have to feel not charged when you do it. So you have to really wait until your nervous system is calmed down and you can go in there and you can bring up the thing you want to bring up in that kind of neutral way. Otherwise, you're at risk of being reactive and therefore not getting heard.
Yeah. So I'm thinking people are like, give me a break. We can't always be, calm or flat or whatever. We're not asking you to be calm or flat. We're asking you to be grounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because when you have a great message, you want that message to be heard. If you don't deliver your message in a way that it can be heard, then you wasted your message, right? So it's not, it's just really, really important that you're very, very grounded. And that doesn't mean you're not going to have moments where you blow up or you get reactive or you do it up. We're all human. We're going to have those moments. And get back on track, get grounded, come in strong and very confident and matter of fact, and, get back on the wagon, so to speak.
Mhm.
All right, D, great. What about the men?
So for the men, in some ways, it's the same thing. If they have trouble with this, they want to do the same kind of using a low cost, sort of a low cost situation, and do the same thing that we talked about with the women. And additionally, if they happen to be on the other side of the mirroring, to really breathe, stop, take that in, and go, oh, you're right. Okay. And restate it in a way that doesn't fit any one of those things we've talked about.
Love that. Be accountable. Slow down. Notice, what are the women saying to you? Because ultimately, men, we all get a lot of men in our offices and their wives are ready to leave them, right? And because it's been years and years and years of, one, the wives not being consistent and strong in their messages, and two, the men not hearing them even when they were.
Mm-hmm.
So once women are out the door, it's very hard for us to get them back. So men, start listening, be accountable, pay attention. All right, awesome. So what we're going to do is we are going to put this template, the ramping template, at the bottom of this podcast. So if you want to try it with any place in your life, then you at least have a template around where you can do it. You can play with the template. You can, put different things in, your life, different. So whatever you're willing to do, just make sure that when you're ramping, there's a progressive increase in the seriousness of the consequence. So here's a template that we will have for you. And again, play with your own. Would love it if you have a template and you play with this, put it in the comments for us, because
Mhm.
other women can learn, and we can, you know, it'll be very helpful, very helpful.
Mhm.
And on that note, wish everybody a great, 3 weeks, and let us know how this goes. Try it and let's see.
Any questions, let us know.
Mhm.
Yes, questions, let us know. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
take care.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.